Hasshaku様.
That country is located about 2 hours by car from my home. My grandparents were farmers and I liked some kind of atmosphere in farmer's house, so that I had often used to visit them alone by motorcycle for summer and winter vacation or other. Since I had went on to high school, Grandpa and Grandma also looked happy to welcome me. But I have not visited their house for 10 years or more, since I went there last before my promotion to third grader. It is not because I didn't go but because I couldn't. The reason is as follows. One day just after school had broken for the spring break, fair weather urged me to go to Grandpa's house by motorcycle. It was still cold, but because I felt warm that spacious veranda, where I was relaxing. Then, such a strange voice I heard. It was not mechanical sound, but something like human's voice. It was poised between voiced and semi-voiced. Wondering what was wrong, I found the hat over the garden hedge. It was not put on the hedge. The hat moves sideways as it is, and when it reached the boundary of the hedge, a woman looked out. In short, it was that woman who was wearing the hat. She was in a whitish one-piece dress. However, the height of the hedge is about 6.5 feet. How tall she was enough to put out her head above the hedge. While I was surprised about that, she continued moving till disappeared from my sight. The sound, such as Papa, had also faded without my knowledge. I just thought that either a woman born tall was wearing Nike Ultra thick-bottomed boots or a tall cross-dressing man was wearing high-heel shoes. After that, with drinking tea, I told grandparents what happened a little while ago. I found a tall woman some time ago. I wonder a man was wearing female clothes. They just replied, "Dear me." However, as soon as I had said she was taller than the hedge, and wearing a hat and making a strange voice such as Papa, they stopped their movement. They really stopped short. "When did you watch her? Where? How taller than the hedge?" I had to face a barrage of his anger and rapid questions. While my answering his questions was pushed by his ferocious expression, Grandpa was quiet suddenly and went to the telephone in the corridor and called someone. Because the sliding doors were closed, I was not sure what he was talking about. Grandma looked somewhat trembling. Grandpa came back after finishing the call and said, "Stay here tonight. No, we can no longer to let you go home today." I wondered what I had done something terribly bad. In spite of my desperate effort, but I could think of nothing that might have caused it. I was not going to see that woman, who appeared by herself, take care of him, my love. I'm going to pick up Mrs. K. Then he went somewhere by his pickup truck. I asked fearfully Grandma what was wrong. "You seem to be possessed by Hasshaku-sama. Grandpa is doing something. You don't have to worry about anything." Her voice was trembling. Grandma taught me about that woman, bit by bit, for a while until Grandpa came back. There is a troublesome spirit called Hasshaku-sama around here. Hasshaku-sama is in the figure of a tall woman. As her name suggests, she is as tall as a Hasshaku and makes a strange way of laughing with a voice like a man such as Bobo. Depending on the person, it seems as a young in a mourning clothes, as an old in tombstone, or an middle aged in farmer's working clothes. Though it is uncommon to be a woman, to be abnormally tall, and to have something on its head. There is a rumor that she followed a traveler into the village long ago, but it is not certain. Sealed with the stone statues of Jesus in this area, She can never go out of her place. If been possessed by Hasshaku-sama, one would be killed within a few days. The last victim of Hasshaku-sama was killed about 15 years ago. I was told later that Hasshaku-sama was sealed with jizo, which means that she could go out only through the particular passages to other place, but I don't know why, so that they enshrine statues of jizo at the village boundary on those passages. It seemed that the statues were located at the boundary of the 4 points of the compass in order never to let Hasshaku-sama go. There were some kind of advantageous agreement between the villages around, such as water right or other, so that they accepted to seal her in their own village. I wondered if men of old thought that it was enough for them to establish a decent agreement, because the victims of Hasshaku-sama were limited only to one in several or decades years. That sounded unrealistic at all for me, of course. After a while, Grandpa came back with an old woman. "We have a situation." "Hold it now," said an old woman named Mrs. K, and she gave me an amulet. Then, she went upstairs and was doing something with Grandpa. Grandma continued to be with me, followed me when I went to the bathroom, and never allowed me to shut the bathroom door completely. I was finally getting to felt it would be terrible. After a while, I was told to come upstairs and was confined to a room. Every window in the room was sealed up with newspapers, on which amulets was posted, and piles of salt were placed in the 4 corners. There was something like a wooden box, which could not be called an altar. There was a small Buddha statue placed on the box. Furthermore, there were 2 sets of bedpan rufto placed from nowhere. I wondered if they mean to make me relieve myself with it. Night falls before long. Mind you, never go out from here until tomorrow morning. Both of me and Grandma will neither call for nor talk to you. Let me see, it is until tomorrow 7 o'clock that you must stay here. Get out by yourself at 7 o'clock. I will notify your parents about this." As Grandpa said with a serious look, there was nothing other than nodding silently. "You may lay to that by all means. Hold the amulet next to the skin. Pray the Buddha if something happens." Because allowed to watch TV, I turned it on, but I felt constrained and less concentrated even though watching it. I did not feel like eating rice balls and sweets which Grandma had given me when confined in the room, and I was trembling all the time wrapped in a bedclothes with leaving foods alone. In spite of such my constitution, I had fallen asleep unconsciously, and when I awoke, I found that some late-night program was on air and that it was past 1 o'clock, and by my watch I had no cell phone at that time. While feeling bad about awaking at an awkward hour, I heard the window glass tapped. I remembered that it was not the sound of throwing small stones at the window, but that of tapping it softly with hands. I could not judge whether that sound was caused by wind or someone was really tapping the window. Anyway, I tried desperately to be convinced that it was because of wind. I drank a cup of tea to calm down, but I was scared after all, so I enlarged the sound of TV and tried to concentrate it. Then I heard of Grandpa talking to me. "Hey, are you okay? If scared, you don't have to be too hard on yourself." I approached the door unconsciously, but soon remembered of what Grandpa told me. I heard the voice again. "What's up? You may come here." It was extremely similar to Grandpa's voice, but it was not. I wondered why, but I felt so, which gave my entire body goosebumps at the same moment. Looking unintentionally at the piles of salt in the corner, the upper part had been discolored in black. Rushing to ship down in front of the Buddha at full speed with clenching the amulet, I started to pray him help me. Then I heard of that voice and rat-tag at the window. I knew that she was not tall enough to do that, but I could not help imagining that she reached her hand to tap the window glass from below. All I could do was to pray the Buddha statue now. I had felt it was enormously long night, though the morning had come anyway, and the morning news was broadcast on TV kept on. Before I knew it, the time displayed in the corner of the screen was probably 7:13. Before I knew it, both the sound of tapping the window glass and the voice had been stopped. I seemed either to fall asleep or to faint. The piles of salt had been discolored in further black. To be sure, I saw my watch to confirm if it was about the same time with TV. Then I opened the door nervously and found Grandma and Mrs. K worried. Grandma shed tears with saying what a relief. "Thank you, Buddha." Coming to downstairs, I found my father there too. As Grandpa stuck his head from outside and told us to get into the car hastily, I went out into the garden and found a compact van brought from nowhere and several men in the garden. I was seated in the center of the middle row of the 9-seater van. Mrs. K sat on the passenger's seat, and all of men who had been in the garden was also on board. There were 9 people altogether in the van, and I was surrounded in all directions. It have been hard for you, Guy. Although you may be annoyed, close your eyes and face down from now. We can't see anything, which you will see. Be patient and never open your eyes until we tell you," said a man of about 50 years old on my right-hand side. The convoy started. The beginning was Grandpa's pickup truck. Next was the van I was on. The rear was my father's car. The motorcade advanced at a considerably slow speed. I wondered if it got up to even 12 miles per hour. Then Mrs. K muttered, "It's crunch time now," and started to chant the name of Buddha or something. I heard the voice again, holding the amulet given by Mrs. K with closing my eyes and facing down, but I don't know why I ended up glancing out the car window with my eyes slightly open. It was a whitish one-piece dress that jumped out into my eyes. It was following according to the car. I wondered if she was following me in long strides. I could not see her head, which stuck out of the window. However, probably in order to peek into the car, she started to lower the head. I whispered unconsciously, "Yikes! Don't look at her." A man on my side raised his voice in anger. I closed my eyes tightly in a hurry and clenched the amulet more strongly. It started to rat-tat at the window glass. Ones surrounding me gave some groans such as "hug" or "whoops." Although they could neither see her nor hear of her voice, they seemed to be able to hear of the sound. Mrs. K's prayer for Buddha was getting to be filled with strength. After a while, when I found the voice and sound coming to an end, Mrs. K raised her voice, "We've come through unscathed." "That's good for you." Voices raised the surrounding men who had been quiet until then. After a while, the cars stopped at the broad area of the road and I was transferred to Father's car. While Dad and Grandpa were bowing to other men, Mrs. K were close to me and told me let her see the amulet. Looking at the amulet I had been clenching unconsciously, I found all part of it discolored in black. "Although I think you must be all right now, you have to hold this in the meantime," just making sure Mrs. K gave me a new amulet. Then I came back home with Dad. My motorcycle was delivered later day by Grandpa and his neighbors. It seemed that Dad also had known about Hasshaku-sama, and he told me that one of his friends had been possessed by her and lost a life in his childhood. He has known some people moving to a different place because of her possession. All of men board on the van is related to Grandpa's family. In other words, they are in a blood relation with me. That is very, very distant. Of course, both Grandpa in leading car and Dad in the rear car were also in a blood relationship to me. They did such a thing in order to deceive Hasshaku-sama as much as possible. Because my uncle, I mean Dad's elder brother, could not come to the village in one night, Grandpa called for ones who could get together soon, even if who were in a thin blood relation to me. However, no matter how hard they had tried, 7 men could not have congregate immediately, and it had seemed to be safer for me in the daytime than night, so that I was confined to the room all night long. I was told that either Grandpa or Dad had prepared for their death for me in worst case. After that, I was explained what I wrote as above and made sure not to go there again. After coming home, when I asked Grandpa over the phone whether he had talked to me that night, he made an assertion that he had never. That was as expected. I thought, that made me cold inside anew. It seems the majority of Hasshaku-sama's victims is the young before arriving at manhood, children in particular. I suppose that when children and the young in extremely unsecure situation are talked with their relation's voice, they will relax their guard carelessly. When 10 years passed after that and I was forgetful about the case, I have gotten the not funny sequel. Grandma called me someone has broken the statue of Jizo that has sealed Hasshaku-sama. It was one of all statues that has sealed the path to your home. Grandpa has already passed away 2 years before, and of course I could not go to the funeral. I was told that Grandpa also had said never let him come. Although convincing myself of it is just a superstition now, I find myself quickly worried about it. If I heard of that voice, Papa Po.